Okay, recording is back on. Welcome everybody to Women in Aerospace Medicine. If this is your first time, we're so happy you're here. If you're returning, it's great to see you. This event marks 1 year of Women in Aerospace Medicine as an organization, which is crazy to think. We've only ever existed during the pandemic. The leadership, not to mention the membership, has never been together in real space. We've only ever existed in virtual space, but we still had an incredible year of all kinds of great guest speakers, astronauts, heads of NASA, heads of research organizations, incredible people. We're going to have more of that this year. But before we get onto that, we're going to have something that came up when we were, in fact, meeting in real space. We talked a lot about at AsMA, the annual Aerospace Medicine Conference, we talked a lot about what people wanted from this organization, what we in the leadership could deliver to you in the membership. And people mostly said, in addition to mentorship and research opportunities for clinical practicing aerospace medicine, we're working on it, that you wanted some development, some sort of professional development so that you can rise to the podium like all the people we were listening to at the Aerospace Medicine Conference this year. So we're here to deliver on that promise. But really briefly, in case anyone watching this video or here in person hasn't been to one of these meetings before, we are Women in Aerospace Medicine. We are a diversity initiative of AMSRO, the Aerospace Medicine Student and Resident Organization. So we do primarily medicine, but also biomedical, biotechnological research. And we're here to create opportunities for leadership, for engagement, for mutual support, for professional development, for all people, but particularly underrepresented people, minorities, women, all female identifying people. We want you all to be able to rise up and claim your place at the podium. And here are the people who have run this organization. It's completely volunteer run. I'm Shana Gifford, also present with me, future Dr. Frost, and a variety of other people, Dr. Ganguly, and a whole variety of other people, Dr. Melissa Jordan, and also Dr. Kay, who's here on the line listening, also from the UK. Dr. Ganguly works for SpaceX and also is a medical student at Miami. Dr. Kay is also a medical person, but also an astrophysicist out there in the UK. And Dr. Frost, do you want to introduce yourself?
Hi everyone. So I'm at medical school currently up in Aberdeen in Scotland. It's great to be here and I look forward to giving you all the tips and tricks that we picked up.
Excellent. And also Dr. McIntosh is representing our research division. So that's us, and we welcome new leadership, and we may be welcoming new leadership very soon. Stay tuned for that. Okay, so quick announcements before we get into it. We continue to work on mentoring. It's not easy when there's only a few of us and we're all doctoring and then some, but we will get there. We promise. We are getting research lined up. We're also working on a mission patch, which is something people said they wanted. That's our current design. We feel like it could be even better, so we're continuing to optimize it, but we hope to be able to offer that to you all sometime soon. Okay, so what you really came here for? Why are we here? Are we here because the 92nd annual International Aerospace Medicine Conference is coming up right around the corner in May of next year in Reno, Nevada, and we want to take the podium? Yeah, we do. Of course we do. We want you to be on that podium, posters on the wall, representing. That's important, and we'll talk more about that. So yeah, we're here to do that, but more than that, we're here to rise, not just to the podium at AsMA next year, but just in general. Everyone you see at this picture, and these were some of our WAM and AMSRO members that were out after a big event a few weeks ago in Denver. All the people with arrows pointing to them are like you. Their voices are real and important, and they matter. Not that we don't love the people with the blue hearts on them. We love Jeff Myers and we love David Lerner. I was on the podium with David Lerner during AsMA, and I've loved Jeff for years. It's not that we don't love them and their voices aren't important. This is not a pie. Everyone's voice is important. That's it. So what we want to do is make sure that everyone gets heard. Your voice matters. That's why we're here. So second part of this exercise, I know that you can type and that you can hear me. I'd like you to either unmute yourself or type into the chat, "My voice matters." I know this sounds crazy, but please do it. Because say it again.
My voice matters.
My voice matters.
My voice matters.
Yes, that's right. That's the precursor to all of this. Your voice matters. You have to believe that. You have to understand that. And it doesn't just matter to you, it matters to me. And it doesn't just matter to you and to me, it matters to the entire freaking world. And then some. It matters to every living being that can hear you, because you are the only person who knows how to solve certain problems. If no other reason. If you don't believe that individuals are important because we exist in this space and time, okay, that's a philosophical argument. I'll have her with you over a drink someday. We'll have that discussion. But whether or not you're a pessimist, an optimist, you got to be a realist. You solve problems. You're a problem-solving machine. You're a problem-solving miracle. That's what a human does. They come into existence and we solve problems, you especially. And without you, we can't solve the problems we want to solve. We can't go to space and survive and thrive there. So your voice is important, not just because you are awesome and unique and excellent, and because I want to hear what you have going on in that brain of yours, but because your brain of yours, that brain of yours has value to the entire scientific community. As a woman, or as a supporter in aerospace medicine, of women in aerospace medicine, and as a person who solves problems. So maybe you're saying, or that voice inside your head is saying, but I haven't discovered anything yet. I don't have anything important to say. What do you think, Eleanor? Does somebody have to discover something in order to have something important to say?
Definitely not.
Heck no. Certainly not if a scientific organizational talk has anything to do with it. Most people holding that podium haven't discovered anything except this one thing. They've discovered what they care about. They've discovered what interests them, or they've discovered what interests the community and decided to take that on as their personal project. Can you think of any other reason why someone who hasn't discovered anything yet might decide to take the podium, Eleanor? Besides they're interested and they think you might be interested, or they've just decided to solve the problem because it exists?
I think if you have a good idea, you just run with it. Or if you want to summarize something for people, then that's also a great thing, because there's a lot of literature out there. And if you're summarizing it for everyone to be accessible, then it's even better.
There you go. That's another good reason to raise the level of general knowledge. So this person, who is not a member of Women in Aerospace Medicine, I make no claim about that, did essentially a search about what we've done so far to try and do heart monitoring in space, and then describe what we're currently doing and what we will be doing in the future. To the best of my knowledge, this person didn't do a ton. She did a little bit of original research, but the majority of her talk that day was not about her original research so much as what has been done, is being done, and will be done. It was a summary of the literature and the science to date, which is incredibly valuable, because who can give me a reason why doing just such a summary like Eleanor mentioned might be valuable?
It shows the gaps of what might be needed in the future, or it can give people tools that they can use. And then
there you go. That's right, Len. It leads the way. It shows the door and gives you all the other doors that have been tried. Maybe they were locked, maybe they were tough to open. And maybe it then shows you the doors, the windows, the places we're trying to get through now, and gives people an idea of where they might walk through with their own work. So the fact that you haven't discovered anything, not an issue, not an impediment, not a barrier. You can rise to the podium nonetheless. If you have a curiosity, an interest, a question, a desire to contribute, you can contribute. Here's one example. Somebody out there decided to find out if they could reduce back pain by asking helicopter crews to stretch before they got on their helicopter. They were just curious. Could I do it? Would that help? So they did a review of the literature, saw that no, there wasn't a lot of pre-stretch protocols out there, looked into some stretching protocols, and had a group of people do them. That's it. They went out and they had some helicopter crews do some stretches. And they saw that those stretches reduced back pain, how often, in which people, for how long. It wasn't a big group, right? It was a human experiment, and we'll talk about what a poster for a human experiment looks like in a little while. But the point is, they just had a question. Back pain in flight crews is huge. What has been tried? What would I like to try? How could I do it? And even if they've never done it before, this could have been a presentation simply on pain in flight crews. Has stretching ever been tried? What are some stretching protocols that exist? What would it take to try it, right? They had a curiosity. That's it. Did they come up with any huge solutions? Yeah, it was kind of interesting, but it proved a point that it could be done. So that was cool. What else could you do? Just ask a question. I know it can be scary because you're making yourself a little vulnerable, right? To get up in front of a group of people you've never seen before, you don't know these people, you are making yourself open to judgment, but just say, hey, I found this question really interesting. So this person did a ton of research. This is Dr. Shah, I believe, if I'm not mistaking this person's identity. And they were very interested. They did original research involving something called the butterfly ultrasound probe, which was put into flight by Trish to see if people could be trained just in time to use it to identify different organ systems that tend to be problematic in space. So this was original research, but the first part of it was just explaining how an ultrasound worked, what an ultrasound has been used for in space, and what could you maybe use an ultrasound for in space. That was literally 3/4 of the talk. The other quarter was what their ultrasound probe did and what they intend to do more of in the future. But 3/4 of the talk is always, what was I interested in? Why is this a problem? What did I decide to do about it? Here's what I found. Here's what I found is the smallest component of almost all of these presentations, right? So maybe you're thinking, well, that can't be it, right? I can't just like have an idea, be kind of curious and get up and talk about it, right? That is actually fundamentally, for the most part, pretty much it. Here's an example. This is a talk from Ed Powers. Ed Powers is the current head of the University of Texas Medical Branch Aerospace Medicine training program, the only place you can go as a civilian in the United States to train as an aerospace medicine doctor, so that you can then get board certified. You can become board certified in aerospace medicine in the US via a variety of means. You can be in the military. If you are in one of 5 specialties, you can go to the Mayo Clinic, though they're actually closing up their shop for a year or two while they move the program to Jacksonville, Florida. While they've been in Rochester, they've taken sometimes one person and usually train them to work at the FAA. UTMB takes between 1 and sometimes up to 4, but usually 1 to 2 people a year, and trains them to mostly work at NASA in private commercial space. So Ed Powers has been the head of that program for many years. His talk, which was delivered virtually, you see there's no one standing at that podium, was literally about what they're going to investigate for commercial spaceflight. He didn't actually investigate anything. He presented a list of things they find interesting medically. So here's the list that Ed presented to us. This was the talk. What are they going to investigate at UTMB? They're going to investigate suborbital pilot training assessment. They're going to investigate wearable biomedical monitoring equipment. That's it. His entire talk was a list of things he's going to investigate at some point in the future, he or his colleagues. That was the talk. I'm not here to say it was a bad talk, but he had no original research to share. He had done no lit review, in fact. He was just talking about what he thought was important and interesting, and he wanted the aerospace medicine community to know. That was it. That's the tweet. That's the talk. This is what he was going to research next year and in the following years. That was the entire talk. Okay, so what do you need to rise to the podium? Literally 3 things. Something you genuinely want to talk about, a functional computer, and a template. That's your starting point, okay? So we're going to talk about what you want to talk about. You've got a computer or some device because you've logged in here, and we've given you a template. We'll work with that in a minute. When you decide, if you decide, and I hope you do, to apply to AsMA for next year, all you really need is, when you do it, is your title, what kind of a talk it is. Is it space medicine? Is it simulations? Is it risk? Put it in some category and 350 words. You do not need to have done your poster when you submit your abstract for consideration. That's important to know. You do not need to have written your whole talk. This does not need to exist. All you really need is your idea, your title, your co-authors, and up to 350 words. It could be 100. It could be 50, right? It just has to be some words that explain what it is you're going to talk about in your poster or your presentation. So to start with, that's all you need. Your idea, a few words to describe it, a title, your co-authors, and you're set. You're good to go. Okay. So the first thing we're going to do here today, I want to make good use of your time and ours, is to practice. I know you're like, God, I didn't mean to show up to like class today. No, we're not. This is just to prove the point. I'm going to have somebody give me the title of a talk, and Eleanor and I are going to workshop it. So first thing you do usually, if you want to think about how you want to rise to the podium, what you're going to talk about there, is to put your idea in the context of an elevator pitch. So I'm going to elevator pitch this poster. This was a poster I did with two co-authors, Joe Platicha and David Lerner. And Joe, David, and I had an idea that we should apply current methodology from anesthesia and pain control into possible near future commercial spaceflight scenarios in order to try to apply the lessons we've learned on Earth to possible scenarios in space. That's the elevator pitch. That's what this poster did in one sentence. 3 people decided to apply knowledge from current anesthesiology and pain management to possible future anesthesiology and pain management in space. That's it. That's the talk. That's an elevator pitch. So that's just an example. Eleanor, could you give us an example of an elevator pitch of something you've done?
Yeah, so for my dissertation, I realized that if we're looking at missions to Mars, which is going to be 3 years long, that's one guaranteed quite serious medical event, and we might need surgical capability for that. And I realized that there was a gap. There are currently no sort of testing of surgical enclosures. So for my dissertation, I designed a surgical enclosure, which is essentially a glorified glove box that you can put an arm or a leg through, in order to fill that gap, and it contains all the fluids because that's very important in a closed loop atmosphere, and also has a lot of infection prevention and control sort of measures in it, but nothing novel. I didn't build it, I didn't test it on parabolic flights. I just had an idea and ran with it, did the literature review, saw that there was very little that had been done before. So yeah, honestly, I think if you have an idea, you just have to run with it. And these kind of workshops are great. I hope you're jotting down stuff, because I know we've all had ideas. We've all seen something somewhere and been like, oh, what if we send that to space? I mean, they've sent champagne bottles to space. They've baked cookies in space. You can do anything you do on Earth in space, and not everyone's done everything because it's so new.
That's right. What if we brew beer in space? What happens to the quality, not even brew it, what happens to the quality of beer ingredients when we bring it into microgravity? Inspiration 4 flew a bunch of barley, I believe, for Budweiser and a few other people. And that's all they did. They flew it. And then they're going to bring it back and they're going to check and see if it degraded because of either launch or time in space. That's the talk. What happened to the ingredients of beer when it was floating around in microgravity for 4 days? That's the poster. Eleanor's talk, possible approaches to surgical enclosures during a long duration space mission to Mars. There you go. And what could we do with something like that, like this idea? So let's take a look and see what happens when I strip out all of the particulars of what David and Joseph and I did. If you strip out those particulars, what you have are a few basic components that make up a poster. The background, what the person reading the poster needs to know going in, that space is like this, many things, right? But you're going to tell them something in particular. And I'm very interested in this aspect of this thing that space has, or that the human body does in space. Why? Because this thing is complex, or dangerous, or has or needs a novel solution in order to not kill everybody aboard the ship, or requires a multidisciplinary approach, right? Maybe you can talk about in the background what aerospace medicine has done to try to approach this, or say, we haven't even tried yet. Therefore, let's try right here and right now. This poster is a thought problem. So this poster, unlike the next poster we're going to talk about where there's actual data to show, which is another kind of poster, this poster is a thought problem. It's an aerospace medicine idea. So going back one, this was just an idea. David and Joseph and I did no research. We created 2 patient vignettes, imaginary patients, and we put them through an imaginary spaceflight in which things we imagined occurred. That's the poster. We applied some clinical reasoning and some very decent medicine to some theoretical patients, talked about what happened when we did that, and what we concluded based on that, which was basically, yes, we can use some management things on Earth and some frameworks for acute management of space sickness, nausea, vomiting. We can probably consider using some other things, but more or less what we really can use from Earth on space is risk assessment, pre-flight risk assessment, medical optimization, and in-flight management of emergency. That will be kind of the same, even if actual day-to-day life functioning of pain medications doesn't work because you can't give inhaled anesthetics, so on and so forth. Did I freeze? Is everyone still with me before we go on? Please drop a 1 in the chat or unmute yourself so I can hear you. Lynn, good. Eleanor, you froze temporarily. Okay, good. All right, so I'm going to stop sharing right now, and I'm going to share a different screen. Thank you, Sol. And let's see, here we go. Let's see if this is the right one. No, let's try a different share. Oh, come on. There we go. Okay. WHAM poster 1 template. So is everybody seeing WHAM poster 1 template? I want to make sure that's the case. Give me a thumbs up, drop a 1 in the chat. Okay, great. It should say super cool aerospace medicine idea across the top. Is that what we're seeing?
Yes.
Good. All right. Somebody, anybody, tell me something you've been thinking about. Medicine, biomed research, biotech, anything. Just give me a cool aerospace medicine idea or drop it in the chat.
CPR on microgravity environment.
Okay. That's one. We'll start with that. Okay. Now, there has been a bunch of work on CPR and microgravity. They've been simulating CPR and microgravity since actually the 90s at least, but possibly also the 80s. The person is strapped onto a stretcher. The person administering CPR is strapped onto the stretcher too. And they actually use the repulsive force of that person's chest recoiling to bounce them off and back. They also have a certain device that you can strap on that will apply the impulsive force. So you would maybe do a literature review on CPR and microgravity, past methods and future methods, right? Or would you like to do something else about CPR and microgravity? What interests you about CPR and microgravity?
I'm really interested in see the real efficacy of the technique, because I don't know if someone has already done it in real life in space.
No, they have not. And it is honestly theorized that even though you could perform it, unless it was because of a very temporary issue, someone was electrocuted, causing a electrical failure of cardio-respiration, meaning that their heart essentially stopped or went into a bad rhythm, and the CPR restored that rhythm, or they had some sort of obstructed airway and the CPR allowed the obstruction to be removed. CPR, as it does on Earth, would probably fail. CPR on Earth is not usually successful more than about 8% of the time. Defibrillation is, but true CPR, even good CPR, is rarely successful. And it has never been attempted in microgravity. So knowing that, what question would you like to ask about CPR and microgravity? Anybody?
If you're talking about the efficacy, could you look at different parameters, for instance, the depth when you're doing CPR? Okay.
Important parameters, or let's see, all the possible parameters of CPR and microgravity. There you go. How's that for a title, Eleanor? You want to take a stab on it?
That looks great.
All right, there you go. So we just made up a talk title just now because we are just that awesome. Okay. So we've made up our title, possible parameters of CPR and microgravity. Okay. Space has a lot of, I'm going to change my color so you can see what I'm adding now. Space has a lot of risk. Oh, all right. Space has a lot of risk to life and limb. Need for cardiopulmonary resuscitation is something I'm very interested in. Possible need. Is the thing I'm very interested in. This thing is. Hi there. I think we have a hot mic here. All right. So this thing, CPR, I'll change the CPR here. Okay. Is complex and dangerous and requires multiple perspectives, multidisciplinary approaches in order to be successful, right? Okay. Aerospace medicine has addressed this problem to date by performing research in microgravity and on Earth since, let's pick a date, 1980. Okay, so we've been looking at it, but we could say in the last 40 years, though, we haven't paused to really ask the question, what are the most important parameters of CPR to be concerned with in microgravity? Okay. All right. So that's what we're going to say. We've never paused to truly assess or deeply assess the most, or determine as a community. We are the aerospace medicine community. We make these calls. Important parameters of good CPR. Does anyone have anything to add? What else would someone going in to read a poster on possible parameters of CPR and microgravity need to know?
The parameters on Earth.
Okay, good. Okay. So possible parameters based on Earth studies and experience are blank. Based on studies, because we have no experience in microgravity, we've never done it for real, we've certainly practiced it. So based on simulations in microgravity, possible parameters. So on Earth, the parameters are, we said depth. What else?
The rate as well.
Depth and rate. Okay.
Location.
Location. Location of the person's hands on the chest wall. Absolutely. And we've done a lot of studies about pauses to give oxygen. Like, we will do 2 minutes of CPR, or we will do, it's varied in my lifetime. It used to be you had to pause every minute. Then it was you had to pause every 2, and now we do, for lay people, continuous CPR. We do not go kissing on the mouth at all anymore, because people, especially in certain cultures, were not going to do it. But also because it turns out that you only use about 20% of your inhaled oxygen per inhalation. There's plenty of extra hanging around. And by compressing and opening the lungs, there was some passive flow of O2. So it actually turns out people do generally okay if they get decent early defibrillation. So depth, rate, location, need for oxygen delivery, for example. Okay, and this is amazing to be 43 now and have seen it change crazily over the course of my lifetime. One of the benefits of aging. Okay, so based on simulations in microgravity, possible parameters include what? What might we care about once we're now doing CPR in microgravity?
toll it takes on the person performing it as well. Because
Okay.
you've only got a certain number of crew members.
Okay. Duration and capacity for crew member response. Totally different question than we have on Earth, right? I've actually never seen anybody ask that question. That's a great question. What else? What other question do we rarely talk about on Earth because it's the white elephant in the room?
The
Who
time
makes-
it might take for further intervention. The time it might take for further intervention.
How long do you keep going before you quit? How long do you keep going before you quit? Anyone in this room, just by a show of hands or drop a number in the chat. How many of you have ever had to make the call to stop doing CPR? Yeah, it's tough. It's a tough call. Some of the CPR I've done has been performative. And it will be for you too, if you ever do it in front of a family member. And I know we're lacking on time, but just in case this ever happens to you, you know your patient has expired. You know they've passed. But for the sake of the family, you're doing some CPR. You do some CPR for a while, the family comes in, they've cried, they say, hey, you know, I don't think their loved one's doing very well. Do you want us to continue? And they say, no, they've suffered enough. Let them, stop the CPR. And then you can say, okay, back away. But in space, who makes the call to stop? Is it the crew? Is it the ground? Are you scrambling to find this crew member's family? Who's going to make that call? So how long to continue and who makes the call to stop? How do you measure quality? On the ground, we measure it by expired CO2, a variety of other measurements. In space, do you have all the bells and whistles? So how to measure quality. Okay, those are some things. Anyone want to add anything else? Okay. So here's the last sentence. We propose that we propose a thought problem. We propose a thought problem. And that's what this whole poster is, a thought problem. That aerospace medicine try thinking about crew member or resource allocation as one of the primary factors in CPR delivery. Okay. Okay, there you go. So even though my spelling is poor, we've come up with enough background that we can then move on to the objectives section and say, here's our objectives. We're going to consider the resources available to perform CPR on the standard ISS crew. We're going to consider resources available to perform CPR on a standard lunar crew. And we're going to consider resources available to perform CPR on a standard Mars mission crew. First thing you consider, arrow down here in the yellow, on ISS or LEO, anywhere, a LEO crew. Then second thing you're going to consider, that lunar sortie, the lunar mission, maybe there's 5 people. And then the last one, you're going to consider a Martian crew, maybe there's 4 people, and that's it. And then each one of those, you're going to put in the little white thing, how many people are there and what other resources are available on the mission. You do or do not have pulse ox, you do or do not have end-tidal CO2, which is usually how we measure, often how we traditionally measure quality. There are many ways to measure quality of CPR. Then you go to your imaginary patient vignettes. You're in low Earth orbit. Welcome back, Erica. You're in low Earth orbit performing CPR. Here's your imaginary vignette. Your patient is 40. They got electrocuted. All right. We're starting CPR. We've got 6 crew members. 2 people are flying the ship, so they're not available. 4 people are attending to the 4 people remaining. One of them is down. They're the one who got shot. 3 people are remaining. One person is holding them down. Another person is performing CPR. The third person is on comms. That's it. That's the tweet. That's all you got. 2 people are flying the ship. They're not available to help. 1 person's been electrocuted, leaving 3 members. 1 of them has to be talking to ground, leaving 2 members. What are those 2 people doing? There's your scenario. Vignette number 2, you're on your way to Mars. There's 4 people. 1's flying the ship. 1's gotten shocked. 1's on comms. 1 person's left to help. 1. That's a very different scenario, isn't it? And not only are you dealing with fewer people, but now you've got a 5-minute, 20-minute time delay. How long is your time delay? Are you actually on comms actively talking to Earth, trying to find that person's loved one? Or are you not bothering at all? This is a totally different scenario here. You've decided you're going to run this whole mission the way you run it, and you will tell Earth later. Or maybe the person on comms is going to get on Earth and say, CPR in progress, secondary to electrocution. We'll call you back. Bye, Earth. You ain't here right now. These aren't real-time comms. Can't help you. And you run the scenario. And then you conclude, actually, there isn't a CPR in space scenario. There's a CPR by light time scenario. There's CPR in low Earth orbit, where comms are generally real-time, though there's blackouts. There's CPR to moon with a 2-second delay. There's CPR to deep space with variable delays, but by the time you get longer than 2 seconds, you're no longer real-time comms with Earth. The crew is running it themselves, and they are making the call for what resources to allocate and when to stop. In Leo, ground is making the call. Thank you, Eleanor. In deep space or past the moon, the crew is making the call. And that can have devastating results either way. So those are your conclusions. That was a poster. We just did it. Any questions? What would you like to say about our example here? Thoughts, feelings?
That actually makes me think about other things, like if someone expires, what do you do, corpse?
All right.
If you're not in orbit, if you're like in deep space, what do you do?
That has been discussed. In fact, that was a topic of an entire workshop at this year's AsMA called Death in Space. Death in Space. And they talked about the body bag or what you would do. Honestly, I think I would probably favor promethazation, which is where you encase the body of your expired crewmate in a bag, float them out the window, now they're frozen. And then on Earth, you submerge them in nitrous oxide till they're frozen and shake them on this little device until they're powder. And then the powder can be buried, embedded in a statuary, shot into space, whatever. In space, you might then retain that powder to return the remains of the crew to the loved one or not. Maybe they're a member of a spiritual practice where you must be intact, whole and intact. And that's extremely important. Well, in that case, you're retaining the body, but the body's going to putrefy unless you do some sort of preservation. So what you might do if you're interested in doing a poster on that is read all the literature to date and come up with a synthesis of it and possible other considerations. Okay, so this was another poster. It wasn't Aerospace Medicine, but I stripped it just to give you guys an idea of what it might look like if you did an actual research. And maybe you made little tiny body bags and were freezing mice and trying different things. You might put your data on something like this. Every poster, every presentation has pieces. And all you really need to do at the end of the day is fill in the pieces to create a cohesive, coherent narrative. Does everyone understand what I mean by that? By filling the pieces together to make a narrative. Bye, Marley. Thanks. Does anyone, can anyone actually, rather than passively just sit there, can anyone tell me what other ideas they might want to pursue, either research or just like we talked about, an idea in the next few minutes that we've got? Who else has an idea? Tuba? I don't know if I've heard from you today. Do you have an idea?
I already plan to submit a couple. So, for instance, with the NGAM lecture team, we'll probably submit one on the lecture series we've done over the last year.
Mm-hmm.
teaching like students and young professionals about aerospace medicine.
Awesome. Awesome. So literature to date would definitely involve the paper by Amy Krakis et al. From UTMB, where she talks about doing remote training of aerospace medicine research that was published in Aerospace Medicine Human Performance. Dr. Krakis and I also ran that study here at WashU in a limited way. So what you can, your poster, let's back it up, back it up, back it up, back it up. Okay, super cool aerospace medicine idea is maximizing approaches to optimizing medical aerospace education for the medical student. And background, aerospace education is not a classical traditional part of either osteopathic or allopathic medical training. However, aerospace medicine provides an incredible rich diversity and value to medical education, allows people to synthesize what they learn in other branches of medicine and put those ideas into practice. There, in the past, we've tried doing some in-person teaching that's limited. We've tried doing some online teaching that's also limited. Here we will consider other approaches for ways to teach aerospace medicine to medical students around the world. How does that sound to you?
Oh, that's awesome. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Yeah, that's great. My one question is, for topics such as what you've just talked about with the CPR in space, I'd be very nervous about submitting something like that because I'm not sure I've got the knowledge, and I'd be worried that I was submitting something that I didn't have a full picture of.
Mm-hmm. You know what? Classic, common question. Am I staying in my lane? So I have two answers to that. One is, you don't need to stay in your lane. There's a reason we call it research. If we knew what we were doing, we wouldn't call it research. We'd call it known fact. That's actually supposedly apocryphally an Einstein quote, right? If we knew what we were doing, we wouldn't call it research. Okay. The other thing is, you have a community with you to help. So you brought me to this very last point. Hi, Laurel. Thanks for joining us. Laurel, can you help address Tuba's last question? Concerns before you share your super cool space medicine human research idea. What do you do before you take that big step and submit it? What's something that you can do?
You can read just what else is out there about it, kind of build your knowledge base. But I missed, sorry, I was setting up my laptop, but I missed the very first part of what Tuba said.
No problem. Tuba said, she has this great idea. She wants to do a poster, which is a thought problem. So it's more like this super cool aerospace medicine idea poster. And her idea, her super cool aerospace medicine idea is ways to approach optimizing aerospace medical education for medical students, for people in osteopathic and allopathic medical school programs. A review of the literature. And just so you know, reviews of the literature don't involve making any abstractions or any claims, right? So Tuba, if you just wanted to review all the literature to date and say there's been 20 papers, and you do your graphic, your infographic would be a timeline of when all these papers were published, and then you do a synthesis of what they contained, your conclusion would then be, to date, the literature has mostly focused on delivering in person. There's been there's been a limited amount of virtual education. And the education is limited to those people who have access to the modules. Going forward, to increase access, there are many paths we could consider, including, sending the modules to medical schools, asking every AMSRO, WashU AMSRO did an education series, just like they did at UTMB. In fact, we borrowed their modules. And your ideas, going forward, we will attempt to implement some of these ideas, and then your references. That's the poster.
Yeah, I would also add, if you wanted to throw in a slight research element, like whatever questions you find most interesting, you can send out, you can make a survey, you can send it out to your medical school, different medical schools, whatever networks. This is a good network to send it out to. And you can even collect, like it can be qualitative or maybe a little bit of quantitative, but even just kind of get opinions, like what are the gaps? And that can be something that you don't have to have a degree in order to do that sort of project. And you will still know more about the information that you've collected, than anybody else. And we'd probably all be interested to hear it. So.
Oh, great. Thank you so much. That's given me a bit more hope.
Good. Tuba, are you on the WAM WhatsApp chat?
I am, yes.
Okay, so Eleanor Frost posted to that chat, and I can repost the optional review feedback for student and resident presenters to AsMA 2022. So Laurel's exactly right. Your community is the second thing you can do, besides just playing it safe and just synthesizing literature so that you're not really being vulnerable. You're not really sticking your neck out, as it were. You're not risking going out of your lane. You can go ahead and make whatever claims you want, back it up, and then send it to cyprog@asma.org. I'm going to put that in the chat. cyprog@asma.org. cyprog@asma.org will provide a group of senior AsMA members who will review your paper, your poster, and give you feedback for free. Okay, so you have until October 1st, which is why I'm running this now in September, to submit to this program mentor group at cyprog@asma.org, and they will get your feedback back to you no later than October 20th, because our deadline is November 1st, which is why I'm running this now. It's just around the corner. So I'll write that down. Submit by October 1. If you want to send it to them, they will get back to you by October 20, and then submit to AsMA by November 1. Okay, that's for this upcoming AsMA 2022. Any questions about that?
No questions.
All right, so that's for everybody here. I want everybody to try. Put together a poster, submit it to Cyprog, and if you don't make it, submit it to Women in Aerospace Medicine. We will read it. Cheryl Lowry, one of the former head of the NASA training program, space doctor training program, has volunteered to read it. We'll get it read. We'll get you feedback. Okay, so that's Women in Aerospace Medicine. Forgive us, we haven't changed it to Women with an X @gmail.com. Women in Aerospace Medicine @gmail.com is where you can send your poster anytime. We are not the end all and be all of aerospace medicine, but we will definitely get you some feedback and let you feel more comfortable submitting it. So submitting it, remember, all you need is your poster title and up to 350 words describing it. That's all. That's it. It doesn't cost you money. You don't have to be an AsMA member. There's a special login. So if money is an issue, you're not a member of AsMA because it is expensive, submit anyway. If you get in and you need help with transportation costs, AMSR has ability to help you, ASAMS has funds, and Women Aerospace Medicine might have funds available too. But don't worry about that stuff now. Worry about your interesting, amazing space idea now. The rest, you'll have to trust, will take care of itself. That's where the faith comes in science. You have to pursue the thing you love and trust that the rest will work itself out, or rather that your intelligence and your network and your ability will help you work it out. Okay, so we've just got a couple more minutes to go. Any questions or anything you guys want to try in our last few minutes? Anything else, anything anyone wants to say in our last few minutes? This is often the best part of the talk.
I just want to add to people who feel like they don't have the authority to speak on something. I've been doing, I'm a medical student, but I've been doing astrophysics for the last 3-4 years, and I plan on submitting something. So, and I feel very out of practice. I feel kind of intimidated to be going up on a platform. This has all been great. And I feel so much more inspired. I was kind of thinking about ideas. And now I actually feel like I for sure should submit them. So I hope you guys are feeling that way as well. Yeah, I'm no expert and I feel very out of practice, and this has been inspiring.
Expertise not required. Inspiration required. If you are inspired, if something inspires you, you're 90% of the way there. What did I say you needed? You needed an idea you were interested in, a functional computer, and a template. You now have a template. You got a functional computer. Now you just need to take that idea and put it into that template. Fill that template out. Turn it in. You don't get accepted this year, no problem. Take your idea, ask us or the people at Cyprog at asma.org to help you make that idea better, and do it again. And you'll get it then. My point is this, you got to try. That's the first step. So if you're here today, that means you have an idea. There's something you're interested in and curious about. You do have it. Now you just need to take that very difficult, but ultimately really small step and let the world know that this is something that's important to you and that you care about. The world is waiting. It wants to hear your ideas. It does. All we do all day long, every day, is reach out to each other across the void. We are trying to connect over something that we have in common, something that we share, something that we both hold important. This is your moment. This is a way to do it in a safe scientific community. It's not perfect, but the fact that you have something about space that inspires you is something you share with hundreds of thousands of other people and tens of thousands of other people in this community. The way that you can let us know what you care about so that we can connect with you about it is by sharing your thoughts, your ideas, putting it in poster form, submitting it. Reno 2020 will have the capacity for digital posters. You don't even have to print the darn thing and drag it to Reno. You don't even have to show up in person. Someone from Wham will help you. If you can't physically come to Reno because you live somewhere else, or you're in medical school, you don't got the time off, you have a couple kids, we'll help you. Don't worry about the particulars. Worry about connecting to the rest of us with your idea, letting us know that it matters to you and that it should matter to us. Get your elevator pitch and put it in poster form. Do your lit review. Talk to us about what you found is interesting. And we'll talk to you about it some more. And then you get to talk about what you love, which is what we're all here to do. All right. So with that, you have two posters today. We might have to do a separate talk for presentations in October. Lynn Stanwyck, who is here wearing the soccer jersey, is it Lynn who's gonna come on and talk about her time at the FAA? Laurel?
Yeah, that'll be, I think it's either the 15th or 16th of October, whichever of those is a Saturday.
Yes.
You'll get more information about that hopefully this coming week.
Yes, the 16th
and
is
the same time, noon central,
so that as many people as we can across the world. We can't accommodate everyone, unfortunately, because time is not exact. Time is a little relative, but
time is different depending on where you are.
Time,
this round planet.
Time is an independent, an independent and independable variable. But it'll be the 17th because the 16th, because I am launching hopefully a microgravity flight full of disabled people on the 17th out of Long Beach.
Oh, cool.
Astro Access.
So you'll have to tell us a bit about that too, maybe at the end of, if you're around for that one. Otherwise, we'll have to hear about it next time.
that may be November. I hope to see you all in October, that you'll come and hear how Lynn got her internship, because she got it after a Wham talk. The head of Wham said, call me, I'll give you a job. Lynn called, Susan Northrup delivered. Okay, so come listen to how she got her job and how you might be able to get a job in aerospace medicine too. All right. Thank you all so much for coming. Take care. Have a great day. This will post to YouTube pretty soon. Take care, everybody.
Thank you so much.